In this video, I will talk about the 2026 World Cup. Imagine saving money for years for one dream: to watch your national team at the World Cup. You book the flight. You reserve the hotel. You buy the ticket. Then you discover that the next match could be thousands of kilometers away. Not in a neighboring city. Not even in a neighboring state. But in an entirely different part of the continent. It sounds exaggerated. But for thousands of fans, this could become reality at the 2026 FIFA World Cup. And that's where the question begins. Are we about to witness the greatest World Cup in history? Or the biggest gamble football has ever taken? Because the 2026 World Cup is not just another edition of the tournament. It is the biggest experiment FIFA has attempted in decades. 48 teams, 104 matches, and 3 countries hosting the event together. When FIFA announced this plan, it sounded perfect. More teams, more fans, and more opportunities for nations that once could only dream of reaching the World Cup. But after the initial excitement, questions started to emerge. Then those questions turned into concerns. And over time, some of those concerns became too big to ignore. Concerns about travel. Concerns about players. And concerns about the quality of the tournament itself. But strangely enough, none of these may be the biggest problem. No. There is another issue that could be even more dangerous. And we'll get to that in a moment. First, we need to understand why FIFA took such a risk in the first place. Because expanding the tournament was not a random decision. FIFA had a massive vision. To make the World Cup more global than ever before. And if the plan succeeds, we could witness one of the most memorable tournaments in football history. But if it fails, people may remember the 2026 World Cup for a very different reason. And to understand the scale of the gamble, we have to start with the first major problem that appeared long before the tournament even kicked off. A problem that fans may feel before the players do. A problem that could begin the moment they book their very first ticket. In most previous World Cups, fans could plan their journey relatively easily. If their national team advanced to the next round, they usually wouldn't have to travel insane distances. But in 2026, things will be very different. And to understand the scale of the challenge, imagine this scenario. An Argentine fan travels across the world to support his team. He watches the first match. Then he checks the schedule to see where the next game will be played. Suddenly, he realizes he has to travel thousands of kilometers. Long hours in airports. Additional expenses. New hotel bookings. And less time to actually enjoy the tournament. Now multiply that experience by hundreds of thousands of fans. This is where the first major question mark appears. Can the biggest World Cup in history also become the most exhausting one for supporters? But fans are not the only ones affected. The national teams themselves will face similar challenges. It's true that FIFA has tried to organize the groups in a way that reduces travel as much as possible. But one fact cannot be hidden. This tournament is massive. And the bigger the tournament becomes, the more complicated it gets. With every additional trip, the pressure increases. The fatigue grows. And the chances of unexpected problems become higher than in previous editions. But travel is only the beginning of the story. Because there is another question. A far more sensitive one. A question many football fans don't like to ask. Has expansion actually made the World Cup better? Or has it simply made it bigger? Because those are not the same thing. When the World Cup featured 32 teams, qualifying for the tournament was an achievement in itself. Some strong national teams failed to qualify. Competition was fierce from the very beginning. Now, the doors of the tournament are wider than ever. And for many nations, that's fantastic news. But some analysts see another side of the story. What if some matches become less competitive? What if we start seeing games that feel decided before they even begin? And what if some group stage matches lose that feeling that every single point can change everything? Nobody knows the answer yet. Because this version of the World Cup has not been played. But there is one thing we do know. If fans are worried about travel, and critics are questioning the level of competition, the players themselves have an entirely different reason to be concerned. And it may be the biggest challenge of all. If you think travel is the biggest threat facing the 2026 World Cup, think again, because there may be a challenge that's even more serious. This time, it's not about the fans, it's about the people who make the spectacle possible, the players. Imagine being one of the world's biggest stars. You've spent 10 months competing at the highest level. League matches, cup matches, European competitions, international games, constant travel, constant pressure, and almost no time to recover. Then summer finally arrives, the moment when your body is supposed to rest. Instead, the biggest tournament in football is waiting for you, and this version of the World Cup is bigger than any before it. That's where the real concern begins. Because football's calendar has never been more crowded. Every year seems to bring more matches, more competitions, more commitments. And while fans often see the excitement, players feel the cost. A long flight, a minor injury, a few days without proper recovery. On their own, these things don't seem important. But over an entire season, they add up fast. And that's why more and more voices inside football have started raising concerns. Some coaches have warned about fixture congestion. Some players have openly discussed exhaustion. Others have questioned how much more the calendar can grow before something gives way. Because there is one reality that nobody can escape. The human body has limits. Football's ambition does not. And right now, those two forces seem to be moving in opposite directions. On one side, fans want more matches, more tournaments, more unforgettable moments. On the other side, players are being asked to carry a heavier load than ever before. Some believe the sport can continue expanding without consequences. Others aren't so sure. And that's what makes the 2026 World Cup such a fascinating gamble. Not because it lacks potential, but because nobody truly knows where the limit is. Football has always evolved. The World Cup has always grown, and many of the changes that once seemed risky eventually became part of the game we know today. Maybe the expansion to 48 teams will become another success story. Maybe the concerns surrounding travel, competition quality, and player fatigue will prove to be exaggerated. Or maybe they won't. Because for the first time in history, the World Cup is attempting something on a scale we've never seen before. More teams, more matches, more travel, more pressure, and with every step into unknown territory, the risks become harder to predict. That's why the 2026 World Cup is more than just another tournament. It's a test of how far football can expand before the costs begin to outweigh the benefits, and until the first whistle blows, nobody truly knows how that test will end.